sense of self, not be trapped in a mode of wandering mind that keeps generating ideas that are essentially unpleasant and discomforting, not particularly useful. So this has been described in many terms. There may be a transcending of the self. There may be a deconstructing of the self. There may be a way to come into a state of consciousness where self still happens. I don't think it's going to go away, and we actually need it. But where self is not something that we are completely enmeshed in. It's just another set of stuff. No.
So it isn't always negative.
No, it's not always negative. It's
distraction. It's distraction. It's the bird.
It's the distraction.
The monkey brain that some people refer to.
There's a little more to it than just distraction. It's not always bad, but it is the default mode. It doesn't mean that every time your mind wanders, you're off in the seventh plane of hell, right? It's not that bad.
It's a reference. Yeah, go on.
But when you slip into daydreaming,
yes.
Well, check it for yourself.
Yeah.
When you slip into daydreaming, is it usually pleasant or yeah? Yeah. Okay. For some people, that state involves planning, anticipating, and worrying, right? And it's if the mind constructs a self, and that self becomes the reference point for this mind wandering that happens, one of the things that is very prominent in the construction of self, when it's combined with this tendency to have a wandering, judging mind, is that the mind judges itself. Mm-hmm. And it judges this person as inadequate. Right, as a separate entity. The mind kind of dares, in a weird way, it presumes to own the whole thing and have opinions, and those opinions are very frequently not particularly generous. So it knows what's wrong with me, and it tells me over and over again, oh man, if you just blah blah blah, then that would be better. And that gets leveraged all over the place. That gets used to sell you toothpaste and cosmetics, and, right? I mean,
affluence. The word affluence, which didn't exist 50, 60 years ago.
Huh. Okay. So,
for the word influenza, for sickness. Sorry.
No problem. There are a couple of different routes to concentration. Helps diminish the power of this rebirthing process, this default mode, this wandering mind. And one of the ways we also pull some of the power out of that tendency to slip is by taking what is actually present and bringing it into the room. So we talked, when we were doing mindfulness of thought, we talked about you can be aware of a thought before you pay attention to the thought, right? So if you say, I gotta take the cat out, or I gotta take the cat out, you're aware that you have a cat before that thought comes into your attention. You're aware that the cat has needs before the thought comes into mind. But at some point, your attention lands on, oh, I gotta take the cat out. But you can play the game of, as the thought arises, you note that it has already transpired mentally and that you don't need to think it out to its end. And the same principle holds with the facets of mind, including the facets of self. And so what we're going to do today is actually invite some of the facets of self to come into the room, be known, be allowed to exist, and then at least hopefully relax a little bit. Ready?
Out loud or?
We're going to do it out loud.
Okay.
How so?
I'll lead you into the okay. So if we talk about the mind as something that we wish to transcend, then we're talking about transcending the self. We're not trying to transcend the mind. We're trying to occupy the mind in a way that transcends self, or deconstruct self, or put self over here so that it's not such a powerful challenge for us. So when we talk about self, we're talking about this construction that goes through the world and does stuff, and probably serves a very useful function, right?
Helps you have a job.
It helps you have a job, right? There is a controlling self that takes charge of things, that gets the job done, very likely has a strong evolutionary value, that your controlling self seeks to manipulate the things around you, and not necessarily in some kind of terrible way, but you're trying to build a shelter for yourself, right? That is controlling the environment on your behalf. Okay. There is also a seeking self that is inherently restless, inherently scanning the horizon more or less constantly, looking for whatever's coming. And one can easily imagine an evolutionary benefit to that, right? We are always actually looking around and paying attention to the environment to see what changes, to see what's coming at us, to see what we need to do, right? So you've got a controlling self and a seeking self, and we're going to invite those into the room. Okay. All right, let's take just a few minutes to come into our meditation position. This will be a social noting exercise, so I'm going to ask you to keep your eyes open and pay attention to the others, and simply take turns. We'll see, there's only 4 of us, so it should work.
You're here too, but yeah.
I am here too, but I'm not going to participate directly.
Okay.
You're right, there are 5.
But who's counting?
They're steadily tracking that.
All right, that attention's working for you. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you 5 separate prompts, and we'll work through them, and each prompt is going to be for about 5 minutes. Okay. So the first one is, as the controller, I notice whatever. Does that make sense? So, as the controller, yeah, I can bring the lights down just a little bit. As the controller, I notice aversion. As the controller, I really want my video to come out well. I want to look good right now. Do those make sense?
No, yeah. I noticed lamp, or,
It's because I want to control it.
okay.
It's in my eyes a little bit. So give it a try. That's why we do it socially, because when you hear other people, it may make more sense for you.